The village of Rhodes in the Eastern Cape Highlands is possibly South Africa's most remote tiny town. If not the most remote, it's certainly one of the trickiest to get to, but it's absolutely worthwhile. It's a personal favorite of mine and my family loves it too. In this video, I touch on where to eat, where to drink, where to sleep, what to see and what to do, and then shed a light on some of the history and what it might be like to live in the town. I interview Henry Reeders, one of the owners of the Rhodes Hotel, with his wife Sandra. He brings color and life to a lot of the stories and the history that makes Rhodes such a special place. If you want to get into the history part, hop straight to the 18 minutes and 19-second mark. Otherwise, enjoy.
He was a Scot. He was so cross with English after the Boer War that he'd sworn he would never speak a word of English again in his life. And until his death, somewhere in the 20s, he never spoke a word of English again in his life. I was very privileged to brought up to be able to speak Xhosa. In fact, I think I can still speak better Xhosa than English most of the days. And eventually they all died as well, and then the town became a ghost town. It was really just old Tommy Thomas living in the hotel, but the hotel was closed. He just had a shop. And I would just drive across a bridge and I would just stop and look at the water and think to myself, geez, this water is so clean, it's so beautiful. Dis ou trash in die stad is Xhosa amazi. Die tete kan nie gekot in die akwas and die kulele. And even though I see it every day, I still stop and look at it, you know. But the minute you bring in a tar road, you bring in a lot of convenience, but you're bringing a lot of other stuff. There's no other roads. It's just this little spot here.
We're in the postage stamp sized village of Rhodes in the Eastern Cape Highlands, and it's postcard perfect. It is so pretty. Look at this church behind us, and there the girls are. What can you see, girls?
I see frost.
I see frost. There is frost. It is cold, and we're coming down to the Rhodes Hotel. It's just one of our favorite places in the country. I'm going to be chatting to Henry, who owns the hotel, with his wife. Sandra's not too keen on being in front of the camera, but thankfully Henry has agreed to chat to me. While he tells us more about the hotel, the village and the surrounding area, I'll show you some footage from our drive into Rhodes, along with visuals of the town and surrounds, adding snippets of commentary along the way. Between my conversation with Henry and some of my own suggestions, you'll get a good idea of where to eat, sleep and drink, as well as what to see and do. You'll also discover a little of the town's history and what it's like to live in perhaps one of the most remote corners of our beautiful country. This is one of our favorite places in South Africa, the old Rhodes Hotel. The bar's in here. We had a very festive evening last night. It's the heart of winter. There's frost all over the floor and some on the roof. You get an idea of this incredible setting and how beautiful the hotel is. Take a walk down here. Good morning.
All right, I'm Henry Reeders. I'm fifth generation farmer in Rhodes, and I'm married to Sandra, my wife. The Rhodes Hotel was closed for about 10 years, and then we bought it 5 years ago. And it's been a wonderful opportunity to run this and to make a difference, because it is the center of the heart of the village, and we're very blessed. We're doing very well. So it's been a pleasant surprise. We never thought we'd do so well as we're doing.
Sleep?
The hotel itself, we've got 22 rooms. We can sleep about 50 people. And then the rest of the village, we can easily handle about 250 tourists per night in the village, which is very nice if you have like Destiny weddings, which is becoming very popular here. We've just finished a new function hall. I must actually go and show you around. We got 3 catered accommodations, of 2 actually. The hotel obviously, then and walkabouts, which sleeps a few people with a nice pub and cuisine. Very popular to come in winter, even though unfortunately the ski resort is closed. Very bad, you know. Tiffonel is not just serving roads well, it's serving the whole area. You know, in Waterhill, it's beautiful. They had Waterhill Valley destinations where people spend a lot of money on fixing up nice guest houses. Even as far as Allowell, Lady Grey, people that would come in because it's far to travel here, they would stay over there, and when they leave, they would stay there. So there was a very big spin-off accommodation-wise. And then, you know, proper jobs are scarce, you know, and Tiffonel in its heydays employed local people, about 80. You know, so that's
a big impact.
Yeah, it's a big impact, you know, and the way it's looking at the moment is deteriorating very fast. And I see it as a national asset. You know, I don't see it. It's almost like the hotel. We just passes by here. We run it for a short time in the whole lifespan of the hotel. The hotel is 140 years old, so we're only going to have it for a certain time, and then the next act is going to take it over. And I think the Tiffonel is the same thing. You know, it is a national asset, and it's supposed to serve South Africa and whoever. You know, Tiffonel, when it was well run, they had overseas guys coming to train here for the national ski teams. You know, so it had quite an international footprint as well, which we've lost that now. Hopefully. We can move it ahead.
Do people stay here and then go to Tennehead?
Yeah, we got a very good relation with Tennehead. It's a different concept to ours, where we are sort of old, back into an old world. The hotel is basically an old museum that you live in, which we try to make it very comfortable, which we hopefully get right. Tiffonel Tennehead is a modern 5-star lodge, which was built in old English style. It's a beautiful place, and it doesn't take a lot of people. It's only got 7 rooms, but we've always managed to have a very good relation with the people up top there, and quite often send our guests up in the day to just go and have a cup of coffee there, or sometimes when people go and stay there, they will stay here the previous night, or they come down. So we got a very good relation, and that's my earlier point. Experience for the area, not just roads, and it all enhances the whole thing of what this area is about. I always measure our successes in returning customers, you know, and we have a lot of that. So that's always nice. And eventually, you sort of become friends and things. And I think that's what happened to a small town like us. People sort of fall in love with it, and you get acquaintances here, and then you come back for that.
I think we'll fall into the category. We came as you were starting, and we're watching the hotels looking magic. Could you live in this small town? Every time I come to Rhodes, which is once or twice a year, it just looks a little bit better. And we're going to see a property that's for sale now. And apparently the pricing in town, it starts at 1.2 million for a home and goes up to 1.5 million. So for people who are thinking in terms of dollars, 1.6 million would be about $100,000. And the most expensive home for sale doesn't match that price tag. You might hear a bit of hustle and bustle in the background, but it's maintenance. People cleaning, sweeping. It's just, it's a Monday morning. The things got going at about 9. So really intriguing. And if somebody was looking for a holiday home escape in some of the best scenery in South Africa, in a safe village that's the size of a postage stamp, you really couldn't go too wrong with Rhodes. Just see if you can see in the background as I'm walking. There's the family taking a stroll ahead. And I think there's a growing market to rent your place out. There's a structure called Rhodes Cottages along with the main hotel that you book through to stay. So really, very interesting investment.
There's only 30 people living in Rhodes. So morning was -8. We haven't had the coldest of winters. We go up to -13, 14 every winter, so we're still waiting for that one. The coldest on record is minus 18 point, call me a liar for 0.1, but it does get very cold.
Sandra and Henry sell very affordable clothing, winter clothing that's well suited to this very cold climate. Good morning. How are you? Good. Nice shop here, Matt. Quite a surprise. And I think there's actually clothing at the back. Let's go to the back. Thank you. Eh? See. And then what's down here? This is interesting.
No, it's not for everyone. No, we've got a few hindrances. We don't have old age facilities here. We've got a clinic here, but we don't have proper medical things. But it's changing. The world is changing so fast. Now, for a small policy that you can add into your medical care, you can have they can airlift you with a chopper. Now with online working, like I told you, my 2 children that are now working here and raising the kids. The world is becoming much different place than what it was.
Digital nomads, they call them.
Yeah. Your cost of living out here, even if you travel, it costs you a bit. But yes, I tell you, sometimes live here for 2 weeks and I don't know where's my purse when I go to town. I need my bank card and I wouldn't know where it is because I haven't touched it for 2 weeks. I mean, if you live in the city, the first thing you do every morning is your car keys, your cell phone and your wallet, and there you go, and every day you swipe that card, so you really live here for almost for nothing in comparison with city living. Look, it's convenient to live in the city in 66 and all those guys to deliver, but you don't have to have that. There's a big thing to be made out to go back to basics, to grow your own veggies, to, just do those little things, It adds so much value to people's lives in this new plastic, life where we just... Real life, and that you can do here, and... I personally think Rhodes is going to develop into something very, very special. And I think Rhodes is going to become very popular and it's going to become very expensive. When we did the Lottoland, it's very popular now, Lottoland the Alpendorpie, and we found them and they came here. We had a wonderful time with them, I must say. It was so nice. It was such a great experience with them. They gave us 700,000 Rand. In a small community together, there's no ways I can get 700,000 Rand out of the community to do projects. No, we've done a few nice projects. But when they came, they asked us, but the town looks so nice, well, why do you need help? We said to them, well, we don't need help. We already proved that we're alive, we're looking after our town. So investing here is probably going to bear much more fruit in a vibrant little town like this. And the thing is, if you're a guy of any means, or not that you want to come and influence the whole thing, but one person can make a big difference here.
I'm on a phone call.
Rate ourselves as a crime-free village, which is we're getting 99.9% right. And we work very hard to keep it that way. You'll see if you go through the village, there's no burglar bars. There's an odd camera maybe on some of the properties, but there's no security guards visible that you will see. It's just a very safe place. The main reason is our access to roads is not easy. We got one dirt road coming in and going through the village, otherwise from Barclay to Maclear. We've got cameras on the roads with the farmers and all that. I think that deteriorates us driving in and causing trouble. And at the moment, roads there's few houses in the market, but they sell. Plots don't sell that well because people are scared building here because it's far away. But you can check on Property 24. The average house prices is between 1.4 and 1.5 million here for these little houses, which is, look, in the bigger sense of things, depends where you are, that's little money, but in the rural Eastern Cape, in the middle of nowhere, that's good money. But there's so much going for roads, that's obviously why you come back. You can still champion this place.
Drink?
Pub is, we're always trying to think of it as a gathering place for everyone. So you'll hardly ever go into the bar where there's not a dog. And then children are welcome, and it's just a lekker, and it's got such a nice vibe, just conducive to a lekker sort of kuier. I drink red wine and have lekker chow with it. So it's a different atmosphere that you don't get everywhere in South Africa. Tourists also meet locals and people live here as friends because it's so small. Everybody talks to everyone.
See and do.
Question is what people come and do here. I don't believe people come to visit me. They come to the area, and not even just the town. And what is very important is the Rhodes experience. I would say our main it's a seasonal thing. It's children's paradise. Everybody these days has got a dog. They come here with their dogs, and the children are still free. Like when we grew up, your child can be around the corner. You don't have to go and watch where she is, where he is all the time. And and these days, not only in South Africa, in the world, that's priceless. For children to be free and where they don't have to live in a screen. Where they can really be children and ride on their bicycles and whatever. And then obviously in winter. We're very much into, we're doing a lot of hunting. We do McNabs. Yeah, the McNab is a Scottish concept where we, obviously here we don't do the same animals I do in Scotland, but what we do here is we do a mountain rebuck. And you shoot a mountain rebuck and you shoot a grey-wing, which is a partridge that comes, which is very common in this area. And then from that you've got to tie a fly with the feathers and the hair of the buck to catch a fish, and then you got to go and catch a trout, and you all start at 6 in the morning and you got to be way in at 6 in the evening. What we have as well is on the Friday night we eat haggises like they do in the Scotch, and then you go out on the Saturday. And what we do is we do it authentic. We're not trying. That evening is quite nice when we would cook you a soup with a grey-wing, and we cook you a trout, and we'll have like a loin of rebuck loin, so you basically have a 4-5 course meal with whatever you've hunted the day, and we dress up for that, and it's a bit of a prize giving. It's cycling heaven. We get a lot of cycling. We get the Freedom Challenge coming over here, right from Maritzburg to Wellington. 2,113 kilometers to be precise, all off the beaten track. People all over the world come and ride it. That's one thing, and then the best fly fishing in the country, river fly fishing anyway, or wild trout fly fishing is in Rhodes, Barkly area, this district. So we hardly ever stock any rivers. It's all natural, and there's still, in my mind, and we're very focused on it now at the moment, is to expand the fishing thing. Because it's catch and release as well, you're not exploiting your source. It's a source that you can always use and use and use.
We're about 10 kilometers short of Rhodes, arriving half an hour to an hour later than we wanted to. Really beautiful scenery on the way in, but good to arrive in the daytime when traveling dirt roads, back roads and rural routes.
In summer, our main attractions is mountain passes. We've got a lot of 4x4 vehicles coming through, and organized tours owners come on their own. A lot of adventure motorbikes, lots of them. They come through. It's very popular here. It's not Deesneck. Deesneck used to be the highest mountain pass in South Africa for many years, until 4x4s got introduced here in the 70s. Then they built a few other little smaller passes. But it's still very iconic, and it's like Baines Pass in the Western Cape. It's just one of those iconic passes, and it'll always be. Sometimes it gets a bit rough because we get very high rainfall and a lot of thunder showers. So the road quite often get stuffed, but somehow we fix it, and it's still very passable. It's very beautiful, and it's hardly ever a nice day up there. Sometimes you will be lucky, and some days it closes up with fog and you can't see far on the other side on the escape. It's typical Drakensberg, you never know what you're going to get. Very few people know there's more plants in the southern Drakensberg than what there is in the fynbos around Cape Town. So there's so many species of wildflowers, just wild orchids. A lot of botanists come from overseas. And then again, certain bird species which you only get on top of the Drakensberg, like the lammergeier, which is quite common here. People drive all the way just to come and see them.
A bit of history.
Yeah, there's wonderful history in Rhodes, especially from the Boer side. I'm very fond of history. Just on how the village started is part of the Karoo history, where people would move up from the Cape Colony, moving up, and The English government used to send out land surveyors to measure up the districts as a progress. The old farmers had a lot of children. Always the eldest son would always stay on the farm and the rest sort of moved on. There was nobody living here. And the oaks would come and they just measure out the farms. And normally they had Scottish land meters doing that. The Scotch was quite profound in being land meters in those days. So you would find that very much English, most of the farms in this part of the Eastern Cape, not just this district, it's got Scottish names. And a lot of people always say, everybody here must be English, which we are not. We are much more Afrikaans farmers here, but we've got English farms, because of the history. And roads started like all of these, and people moved in here. You can imagine what it must have looked in those days. It must have been wild. And apparently there was a few stories about a few wild oaks that came and hide here and all that. But typical Afrikaner history, when the oaks would get together, immediately the first thing they wanted to do is to get a congregation going. And there was an oak, David Ross from Lady Grey. David Ross came here and the start of the congregation in Roswell.
It's Rossville.
Yeah, okay. The church is still, the community, you heard the church bell this morning, it's still going, it's still the Roswell, it's an Ingeer church thing, but it's still Roswell. But just an in-between story, he was a Scot. He was so cross with English after the Boer War that he'd sworn he would never speak a word of English again in his life. And until his death, somewhere in the 20s, he never spoke a word of English again in his life.
He spoke Afrikaans.
He spoke Afrikaans, so David Ross. Yeah? If you go to Lady Grey, you will see a lot of his history. The school is named David Ross and all that, so there's a lot of him there. But anyway, so what happened is wanted the church, and then there's the old original farmhouse is still across the church, right across. It's called Tintin. The farm's name is Tintin, on which the town is built, and the commune is now. And it belonged to a certain Mr. Foster, and he said it's right. He will sell his farm for becoming a town on prerequisite that they would sell a certain amount of urban on when they would have an auction, and the other prerequisite was that they would call it roads. That was in the late.
So Foster wanted it to be called
roads because it was in 1988, 1990 was the sort of things that happened. That was before. Look, the Boer War and all the diamond rush things started only a bit after that. So Rhodes just got here as Prime Minister of the Cape Colony, and he was quite a mover and a shaker. Whether you like him or not, Rhodes could get things done. And he had very favour with the English government. And I think the thinking must have been, they call it roads, this town will be made. He will come and he will send money and he will look after the thing. And but unfortunately to this day, Mr. Rhodes was never here, and there's an urban legend that he sent trees and money, but I think it's all urban legend, it's all urban legend, and nothing of that has happened. The only result, we've got a photo in the bar of Cecil John Rhodes, but before my time, another photo has been shot 3 times. So, anyway, and then, they had the town started building these, what they call, where the tennis court now was, what they call the town square, and people doing the Camp to Church, they used to leave their ox wagons and horse carts here, and also did a bit of trading here, when you come from the farm, you've got butter, and others got fat chickens, and they all brought it, and then eventually they started building these little houses. And the Karoo is all the same. It happened the same. They used to call them tuishuisies or nagmaalhuisies, and then you will see the building style in Rhodes is Karoo building style, which is actually totally the wrong building style for a cold place. But that's what they knew, and I think they sort of came here, And then the town developed. The school had built this beautiful old sandstone school up top, which is Rubicon now. And there's a post office up the hill.
I saw the post office is beautiful.
Yeah.
And you've got old, tiki box.
Yeah. We fixed it up now with a Lotto Land thing. So it's all repainted and that. We're still trying to find a nice community use for it. We've got a few ideas. It'll eventually happen. And then up top on the hill, you'll see there's a huge old school, sandstone school, which was sold in the 70s. It closed in 78. I was in 77. Closed the year after I left. Then it was sold privately, which is a good thing. At least it's been well kept and all that. It's very beautiful. So the school had 180 children in those days, and then preserved. And old Chris Christodoulou, he makes, he's got an impact in the area, and which is nice. Everybody that comes here contributes something.
That's a famous surname.
Yeah, I remember the old boxing referee Stan Christodoulou. Yeah. Yeah, they related, yes. You remember him with the old Pierre Fourie fights and all those when we were late.
Big boxing fan, that's right. Yeah.
Town was flourishing, and it's like the rest of the Platteland. Eventually, the depression came, and it was. I will be with you now. Interrupt your thing too much.
No worries.
You obviously edit this thing.
Yeah.
The Great Depression happened, and people got poor. And in the early days, the old farmers used to have bywoners. I don't know what you call them in English, but people that live on the farm and sort of kept a few animals, but provided like work. And all those people eventually left when the railway started and the mines got flourishing. People urbanized, And
Maybe we're going full circle though.
yeah, and people, now it's coming back, eh? It's amazing. So people all left and the farms became, unfortunately, it's also international tendency, which is very sorry, that farming units is getting bigger and bigger and corporate. Where you have the family on every farm now. Every farmer's got 5-6 farms, which is very sad for the farms. Old farmhouses that get dilapidated and. But anyway, so that happened, and eventually this whole town became, when I was here, primary school, there was a few old aunties living here in the town. All the old chaps they went to Uppington. They're all gone, and the old woman was here. And I still know the houses by this old auntie's house. We old people, we still talk about that. And eventually they all died as well, and then the town became a ghost town. It was really just old Tommy Thomas living in the hotel, but the hotel was closed. He just had a shop. Always a guy in the police station, and it was a total ghost town. The houses were dilapidated, and some of the houses were actually broken down, unfortunately, because people never have the foresight to realize
Would that have been?
that is mid-70s. Out of the blues, the hippies discovered roads, and that was a very interesting phase. And they came more from the English liberal universities, Rhodes, which was close by, Maritzburg, even Cape Town, and they bought houses here in those days for $100 and $200. You bought it, but they were dilapidated, but they bought it and they pulled in here. And in a year's time, they must have pulled in about 120 hippies in here. The whole town was just crawling with hippies, and that was quite a politically an interesting time because the hippies were very obviously liberal, so they were pro-ANC. ANC was banned, so there was a bit of security, the old veiligheidspolisie, you remember? So they were sneaking around here, and the one hippie's house burned down, and they blamed it on the farmers. And obviously the farmers were quite upset because of this. In the context of the time, it was, yeah. So anyway, that happened, and I walked here with barely any clothes on, and that's carried on for a year or so, for a few years. And then P.W. Botha became Minister of Defence under John Vorster. And they decided, bugger this, anybody in the national service became, I think. And if you even if you didn't have a South African, if you were a European by descent and you had lived in the country more than 5 years, you had to go and do national service. And they quickly found out who all these acts was, obviously with the security police here. So they all got instructions to go to the army. And as they got it, they all moved out here as fast as they got in here. And they all went to Port St. John's, most of them. Because it was still Transkei, it was an independent country. And so doing that, they escaped Rhodes. And while they were here, a lot of their lecturers and friends, whatever, obviously came and visited them. And when they all moved off, the oaks that had IDs and what decided, well, they're going to take over these houses for those monies, a few hundred rands. And that's actually, that's how Rhodes sort of stood up out of the dust. And that's quite an interesting thing. And it became very popular. And then oaks started to build sort of funny houses, and, everybody's got their own idea. And there was a guy, Sam Mallet, and he's a lawyer in Joburg, and he had two, three friends, influential guys, and they decided, bugger, they're going to save this village. And they did, with a big effort, they declared this thing a national monument, the whole village. And to this day,
what year was that?
That was about mid-80s. And since then, there's very strict building regulations, and which everybody adheres to, and you can build new houses, but you would really have to look careful to see which is the old houses and which are the new houses. And that has saved Rhodes to a big extent. And also little things like it's a dark town. There's no street lights. You can walk around, you can see the stars when you go home at night.
Eat?
Because we're far away, and the hotel is old, 140 years old. We sort of do it in the old way. When we were children, you remember we always had hotels with a fixed menus, and you could go through the whole menu. And So we try and do the same thing where you have like your 3 knives and 3 forks and blah, blah, blah. But, eating is an experience. If you do this 4 or 5 course meals, which we do every night, even if we just got 2 guests, we still do it. Eat a little bit of that, a little bit of that. It's like a whole experience. And the whole idea is to sit here around the fire and spend an hour and a half in the dining room, sitting and drinking wine and meeting people, and that works for us. And then another thing, we only serve local cuisine here. We're very blessed with being to farm. So at least 80% of our food comes from the farm. We got free-range chickens, free-range eggs. I've got my own little rural abattoir, so we provide all our own lamb and beef, and then almost always have venison on the menu. Game is actually very common, but very few people know how to cook game, or even like game, because it's just more a thing of not knowing. It's such a wonderful product to work with. First of all, it's cholesterol free, it's free range. You couldn't get anything healthier in your life. If you know how to cook it, it's wonderful. I've had people say that I don't like it, and then after they said, yes, what is this? And it's been wonderful. So long story short is we do local cuisine. I can do other things, but I just don't think you want to come to Rhodes and eat prawns. Across the road we got the Studio House, which is very popular, especially in daytime restaurant. So trashen isithetha isikhosa samazi ndiyathetha kancinci kodwa ndiyakwazi ndikhulela apha emaplasini ngabantwana basesiXhosa, ngoku sendikhula ndiyakhula bendikwazi uthetha isiXhosa. Inganceda kakhulu le nto, ndiyabaqonda abantu bahlala apha kum napha emaplasini, apha e-Roots napha i-tourism. Umane nyhani andazi intoni isiXhosa, kodwa i-privilege ukwazi uthetha isiXhosa neSotho kancincane ngabantu apha. So I was very privileged to brought up to be able to speak Xhosa. In fact, I think I can still speak better Xhosa than English most of the days. Anyway,
Thank you so much for your time.
No, man, thank
your
you.
passion. I can see we could sit here for 2
Few
days.